call this meeting to order. It is now 7:01 on May 15th. Would the clerk or fill-in clerk please read the roll?
Would you like me to do that, Abby?
Sure, if you would like, that's great.
Sure. So we already know Michael Rossi's not coming tonight. Mike Knudsen.
Present.
Okay. Ellen Dahlgren.
I'm here.
Eddie Alberino.
Here.
Here. Mike Florio.
Here.
Martin Jaffe.
Here.
Alan Kravitz.
Here.
Adam Moore.
Here.
And we have a new member, Cynthia Lettieri. Cynthia is not here yet. Okay. And we have Jay Mandel.
Here.
No,
Here.
Jay is here. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have another new member, Zach Florde. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Zach? No? And a member who's new, but not new to you guys, Bo Clark. Bo, are you here? No. Okay. All right. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have all regular members here, except for Michael Rossi.
Okay, so we don't have to seat anybody.
No, you have 7 voting.
Perfect.
And Zach Florida is just coming in.
Oh, great. Zach?
He's still joining.
Oh, okay.
Is Zach a regular member or a?
He's an alternate.
He's an
Zach?
alternate.
Oh, he's just connecting to audio.
All right, as soon as Zach gets on, can we seat him for, I guess we seat him for Michael Rossi then?
Hi, guys.
Hi, Zach. Welcome. Are you there?
Yep, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Sorry, I'm just messing around with the Zoom.
Okay, and just so we all know, you have been sworn in, so you can vote.
I have been sworn in, yes.
Wonderful.
Great. So if we can seat him for somebody.
Well, Michael Rossi is a non-voting member as chair, but I mean, I think it's okay to seat him.
But wouldn't Mike Knudsen be acting as chair and be the non-voting member at this point?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And I see that Cynthia is also here. Cynthia?
Hi, how are you?
Good. I just want to welcome you to the meeting. And you're sworn in, correct?
Correct, yes,
Great. So you can vote as well.
I can.
Okay. Very good. All right, moving on then to chair comments. We had one application that did not make or correspondence that did not make the agenda regarding the 11 Lindera Lane, Andrew Randy property with the easement. Could we get a motion to add that under correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
We got a second. Can we do a roll call? Do we need to do roll call vote or can we just do a sign
It
vote?
can be a majority for this one. That's fine.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hand up.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's added as C to the correspondence. Okay, receipt of applications.
We have no new applications.
Okay, we can skip over that. We can dive right in under 5 application reviews, PZC 23-7 for 57 Shore Road. I guess, do we have an agent or applicant that wants to present?
Hey, Tony Baldock, agent for the applicant. Again, it was 57 Shore Road in Clinton. So the site plan before you was previously approved by the DEP and Planning and Zoning Commission in July of 2013. Due to family health issues, the applicant didn't move forward with construction replacement of seawalls. And there was, I think most of you were here last month. But quickly, there's 3 retaining walls on the property. There's one under this deck. There's one in the middle and one down by the closer to the ocean. They're in terrible disrepair. They had gotten a plan done from the structural engineer in Old Saybrook, Charles Brown, to replace the seawalls. We've gone through DEP, and some of the questions that were outstanding from them are I'm going to start from the seawall, seaward and heading inward. So the existing top of wall there is, you'll see in a minute when I show the pictures, it ranges from 12 to 12 and a half feet in elevation, and the new proposed top of wall is 12. Stepping up to the next level wall, the existing top of wall is 14 foot 9 inches, and the proposed is 15 foot 9 inches. Moving farther up to under the deck, it's really a mess in there. There's a combination of walls and piers. So the existing top of pier and wall areas ranges from 17 foot 9 to 18.3. So the replacement would be all piers, and those would all be at 19.4. A lot of that stuff is sitting below grade, so the raised elevations get the piers out from underneath the dirt, so there's no wood in the dirt any longer. There are some intermittent walls and piers between the stairs and the western property line. So from these stairs to here, there's a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. All that stuff would come out. There's a bunch of little pieces and odds and ends that they kind of prop the soil up with over the years. So due to the steep slopes and the proximity to coastal resources, the majority of the demolition and construction will be done by hand. Any machine work that they do have to do, so they'll drive along this edge of the property, stay at the top of the bank. Again, when I get to the pictures, you'll see why it's not possible to get a machine down there. So we stated that we're going to run a row of filter fabric, on the beach area to kind of define where construction goes, so nobody gets overzealous and heads down to the water. After a few comments with everybody, I think it's probably better to do row of orange construction fencing. That way water comes in and out, or blowing sand. So anyway, it does say silt fence, but I think it'd be better if it was orange construction fencing. One of the comments was, even back in 2013, the flood zone was labeled incorrectly. We had it as VE zone 14. It's actually VE 20. So that it actually hasn't changed in any way, it just was mislabeled. The bluffs and escarpments that will be impacted by the wall will be impacted by wall replacement. However, the wall replacement is a necessary evil, and it allows for your future protection from erosion. Again, I'll get to the pictures and you'll see what I'm talking about. The areas of disturbance will be replanted using materials listed in Connecticut's Coastal Planting Guide, which is done by the Sea Grant Connecticut and Yukon College of Agriculture, Health and Natural Resources Extension. Let me see if I can reshare and show you some pictures, and then we'll get. Come on. And then I'll get to let you guys ask any questions. So this kind of gives a pretty good view of how steep this slope is. So and these pictures are in the file. So a lot of this stuff is starting to erode because the walls are starting to lay down and fall over. Again, they're made out of wood, so they're mostly just going to rot away. And this will just get worse and worse. So that's kind of what we're searching for, is to place this. And that's it. If you guys have any questions.
We can open it up to the public, correct, at this point then?
So this is actually this is a coastal site plan, so there's not a required public
okay.
hearing for this, so it's questions from the commission at the stage.
Okay. Do any commission members have any questions they'd like to ask Tony at this point?
No, I'm familiar with this. We did Loop Road, so I'm pretty familiar with this.
Okay. Abby, did you get the updated drawings with the corrected mislabeled flood zone, or?
Yeah, so around 11 o'clock this morning, those got uploaded to the
Thanks.
application site in
I'll go
OpenGov. So that is there. One thing, Tony, I want to
You can help
confirm
me.
is.
Oh, it's good.
Oh. One thing, Tony, I just wanted to connect with you on was the revised date. I think I still saw 4/18 of 23 on there, and I wanted to know if the revised date had been updated on those plans. Only because when the commission votes, I want them to make sure they understand which plan version they're voting on.
Let's get the right plan in front of me here. Let's give me 1 second. Okay, so there is a revised plan, but I guess when I downloaded, that's interesting. I did upload one this afternoon, but it looks like when I just downloaded it now before the meeting, it is not the correct one. So the revised date with that information on it is today's date, 5/15/2023.
So a couple of things for the commission. The staff report that was associated with this application talks a little bit about the deep review and some of the findings that would be necessary in order to approve a coastal site plan, which you're all, I'm sure, familiar with. The two that I had written down for suggested findings were the proposed activity, including any conditions placed by the commission, is consistent with the coastal policies of CGS 22A92, and that the proposed activity, including any conditions that you may make, would mitigate any potential adverse impact on coastal resources, and that the adverse impacts have been found to be acceptable. So we want to make sure that we get if the commission is looking to move forward with this, that those findings be made as part of any action. The plan to be referenced is the coastal site plan prepared for Mark Richards of 57 Shore Road, Clinton, Connecticut, prepared by Thomas A. Stevens and Associates, revised through 5/15/2023. And then a couple of quick things relative to conditions. Some of the things that were requested in the staff report have been addressed, such as the soil and erosion control guidelines, modifying the plans to show the correct flood elevations, making sure that the beach is shown all the way up to the base of the first wall, since it's come farther inland since the 2013 plans, as well as sort of what the final or the willingness to use the Connecticut guidelines for coastal plantings. Two conditions that I would recommend is that the final planting plan be submitted to the planning office to make sure that it's consistent with those planting guidelines prior to the start of construction, and that the zoning enforcement officer would inspect the installation of all erosion and sediment controls in the marked limit of work prior to the start of work, as well as after completion of the work, to make sure that the erosion and sediment controls have been appropriately removed. So those would be the three things that I would recommend adding.
Any other questions from the commission before we?
Just a quick question. Sorry. So Abby, with those recommendations, do we make a motion to add those recommendations then?
So, yep. So typically what would happen is that if the commission were to come to consensus that approval was the direction, the motion could be made to approve the coastal site plan located or prepared for Mark Richards, 57 Shore Road, Clinton, Connecticut, prepared by Thomas A. Stevens and Associate, revised for 5/15/2023, with the findings 1 and 2 in the staff report, and adopt any conditions that you may want to add in. So if you like those conditions, great. If there are others that the commission thinks are necessary, that is your purview as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question, may I?
You may.
All right, I see no problem with anything, but they said they're gonna, it says, describe the proposed project, and it goes into detail, but it doesn't say new uses and changes of what they're gonna use. Are they using concrete or wood or?
Yes, sorry, you're right. I did mean to address that, but yeah, so we're replacing the wooden walls with concrete walls.
Okay, are you gonna have any staircases up there?
So
Going up?
they intended to
walk down to the beach or up to the thing?
So our construction is going to leave the existing stairs in place.
Okay.
If you look closely, this little L shape is there, and this this L shape. So we're not touching the stairs. We're just replacing the wall.
Oh, okay.
But it is concrete, not wood anymore.
Okay, very good.
And my understanding, Tony, is that those concrete walls have deeper footings than the current timber. So.
Correct.
Okay, we could enter. Does anyone want to entertain a motion at this point?
I'd like to make a motion to approve. 57 Shore Road. I just need 23-7. Is that the number we're using?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve 23-7 and find out is with the conditions that we talked about before. Let's see.
Abby, would you like to maybe add to that motion and have Eddie approve what you had said before?
Yeah, exactly, Abby. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Sure. So the commission, as Commissioner Alberino is speaking, would be making a motion to approve the coastal site plan application 23-7. As shown on plans entitled Coastal Site Plan prepared for Mark Richards, 57 Shore Road, Clinton, Connecticut, prepared by Thomas A. Stevens and Associates, revised through 5/15 of 2023. With the conditions, one, that the final planting plan be provided to the zoning enforcement officer for review for consistency with DEEP's coastal planting guidelines. That condition 2, the zoning enforcement officer be called prior to the start of construction to inspect the installation of sediment and erosion controls on site. And 3, that the zoning enforcement officer be called at the completion of the project to inspect the site to ensure slope stabilization and removal of any erosion and sediment controls that are remaining. And to adopt the findings of the staff report that the proposed activity, including any conditions placed by the commission, is consistent with the coastal policies of CGS 22A92, and that the proposed activity as conditioned mitigates potential adverse impacts on coastal resources, and that those impacts have the commission has found those impacts to be acceptable.
And I'll second that motion as Eddie made it and Abby clarified it.
Very good. Can we get a roll call vote then?
Kathy, do you have a list?
Or do you want me just to go through?
I can grab it. All right.
I muted my audio because the dog was barking. Okay, Mike Knutson,
Abstaining?
okay. Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Eddie Alberino,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz,
Aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
and let's see, we had seated Zach. So Zach Forte,
Aye.
and I believe, didn't we seat Cynthia as well?
I think so, yes.
Yeah,
Chin-
one for Mike and one for Mike Knudsen. Cynthia?
Chinzia, yes.
I'm
aye.
sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Okay.
All right,
All right.
motion passes. Thank you, guys. I realized before we started this that I skipped the minutes, number 2. If we can go back to that and get a motion to approve the minutes from April 10th, 2023.
So move, Mike.
Thanks, Ed. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? If no discussion, we can get a roll call vote on that one.
Okay. Let's see, Mike Knudsen is not voting, so Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Eddie Alberino,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz.
I abstained, I wasn't there.
Okay. Adam Moore,
Aye.
Shinzia Lettieri,
Abstain.
and
I
let's
think.
see, Jay Minto.
I'm not voting, I don't think, but I,
Okay, so you're an alternate, right?
oh, yes, correct.
Okay, so you're not seated. And Zach Forte.
I'm Zach Flord. I'll abstain though also.
Okay,
Hey, can I have a point of order? Kathy, didn't we discuss that alternates can vote for minutes and everything?
Sorry, Eddie, what did you say?
If they're not seated, they're still allowed to vote for the minutes and stuff like that. We
They are,
talked
but I
about this.
I think because they were just beginning members.
Okay, but Jake could have voted. I'm just
Well,
saying.
Jay's not seated because we had a full roster now. We seated Cynthia and we seated Zach.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. That motion passed. Moving back to applications and review. If we can go to PZC 23-8, the proposed text amendment of section 5 zoning enforcement officer.
Sure, and I can give just a brief, and this is going to hold for PCC 23-9 and 23-10. The public hearings for the modifications for these zoning text amendments as proposed by the Regulations Committee and gone through the Planning and Zoning Commission were advertised for public hearing to open. So what we do need to do is open the public hearing for each of them. The agenda, however, was published showing them only as application reviews, and in the interest of transparency and making sure that the public understands that these were open for public hearing, it's staff recommendation that we open them. You can begin discussion, but that we leave them open until the June meeting to ensure that if anybody had comment to make, that they are very aware of what the process is and have the opportunity to do so. So what we want to do is officially open the public hearing, and read through the secretary, and then go from there on each one of these.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing on B, C, and D. Ellen, do you have anything that the secretary needs to read for these?
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay.
We generally have not been reading
That's fine.
notices of public hearing. And if you want me to read the whole revised section, my goodness.
Nope, I was just giving you an opportunity if there was anything you wanted to
Oh,
say.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I didn't want to scare you there because that's a lot.
Many pages. Yeah.
Yeah,
Why
so
don't
we would
we-
open each hearing separately. So we would start with PZC 23-8 proposed text amendments to section 5 zoning enforcement officer.
Let's
Okay.
open that one and see if there's any public comment on that at this point, and then we'll go to commission comments. If you want to be heard, and you can always message in the chat for the next one or the one after, and we'll know to include you. But not seeing anybody raising their hand. Any commission members have anything to say on PZC 23-8?
I'll move to continue 23-8 to the June meeting.
Second,
Second, okay. If we can get a vote on that one,
You want to do this as a roll call vote as well?
unless we can just do a voice vote, which is I'm fine with.
To continue is fine. The action will require a roll call, but to continue is fine. To do a voice.
Okay, if we can get a voice call, roll call, voice vote on this, one,
Aye.
continue.
Aye.
Hi, Mike.
All right. Any opposed? I think everyone voted yes, so continued to June. If we can open PZC 23-9, the proposed text amendment of section 4, application requirements, procedures, and design process. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to discuss this or weigh in? Okay, not seeing anybody jump up for this one. Does anybody on the commission have anything they want to discuss on this proposed text amendment? If not, we can get a motion to continue this one to June.
So moved.
Second.
Great. If we can get a voice call vote on this one.
Aye.
aye,
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Unanimous. All right, moving on to D. If we can open PZC 23-10, proposed text amendment of section 3, definitions, applicant PZC. Anybody from the public that would like to weigh in on this at this point? Okay, not seeing anyone. Anyone from the commission want to comment on this or make a motion to continue?
Seems all cut and dry to me.
If I could through you, Mr. Chair, the only couple of things that there's a staff memo that's associated with this one with some very minor, not hugely substantive modifications, but we do want to make sure that it's in the record that in section 3 for proposed definition amendments, the definition of dwelling unit would be amended to add that bed and breakfasts, as currently hotels and motels, but bed and breakfasts are not listed, that a bed and breakfast along with those two other uses would not be considered to be a dwelling unit, so that there's no potential future confusion over a transient lodging being considered to be a dwelling unit. So that was a recommendation from the town attorney. The other is the definition of family, 3.7.1, which is proposed to be amended. Right now, that language as advertised, it would be persons who share an entire dwelling unit and live and share cooking facilities as a single housekeeping unit. The definition as amended, instead of the words an entire, it would be a single dwelling unit. So persons who share a single dwelling unit and live and share cooking facilities as a single housekeeping unit would be the definition. And the reason for that is just to be consistent with later ways in which we reference single dwelling units in the regulations. So it's a minor change for consistency. The intent and meaning is the same, but those were the only 2 recommendations that have come out or changes so far.
All right, and just one question on that, since you mentioned bed and breakfast, what about like Airbnb type properties?
So
No.
yeah,
Okay.
so right now there's no separate definition for those. There are no regulations specifically relative to them. I would think that they would need to be separately defined in order to regulate them differently than simply uses of residential property. Probably a much bigger conversation for tonight, but as proposed, there is no new definition being added to section 3 relative to Airbnbs or any form of temporary lodging and for the full rental of an entire dwelling unit.
Okay. All right. Anybody?
Do we need to do anything to continue this to June to add the change that Abby was just mentioning about changing the word entire to single?
No, you can simply go ahead and continue it. It's in the record, so it is up on the publicly available site. So if it's available to anybody. So it's another reason it's good to continue to give people a chance to weigh in if they want to say anything about this.
All right. So I'll move to continue this application as well to the June meeting.
A second.
Thanks, Martin. Can we get a voice call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Any opposed? I think that was unanimous. All right, that one was unanimous. Move to June. Thank you, guys. All right, now we are moving on to 6, administrative review. Andrea L. Gomez, Hinckley, Allen, Snyder LLP attorneys at law will be discussing the possible redevelopment of 345 East Main Street. This is just an overview. This is non-binding in nature. So this is just a discussion at this point. Is there an agent or or someone from the property that wants to present and discuss?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you well.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen in Hartford, here today on behalf of the Datillo Group, excuse me, the would-be applicant for the redevelopment of 345 East Main Street in Clinton. With me tonight, we have a couple of additional team members. We have Daniel Ackerman, a representative of the Datillo Group, Al Wolfgram, our engineer, and Mark Petrin, our architect. And we certainly appreciate the commission providing us with the opportunity to engage in this, again, informal discussion. You were right, Mr. Chairman, regarding our proposed plan for 345 East Main. Our goal for tonight is to provide the commission with a high-level overview of the site, what we're proposing to do with the site, and then to answer some questions that in our discussions, our preliminary discussions with town staff, Ms. Pearsall indicated the commission may be interested in. Given this goal, Mr. Chairman, just to kind of outline what we're proposing, I'm going to kick it off with an overview. I'm going to hand it over to Mark Petrin to discuss the design or the proposed design as it is right now. And then I will bookend the presentation. We're shooting for 15 minutes or under, really just trying to give the commission a general overview of what we are thinking of doing here. I will also note, just for the commission's benefit, we have been in contact and have been discussing the proposal with town staff. And we've received some preliminary feedback, which we are certainly taking into consideration and will continue to evaluate as we move hopefully closer to a formal application. So with that, I am going to try and share my screen. The commission, can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, it's been a little while since I've done a Zoom hearing, believe it or not. It's all you did for a couple of years that you seem to forget. So I will dive right in. This is just a Google aerial of the site. The site is right here. It's about 1.82 acres and it's right on the Clinton-Westbrook town line. It's located in the I-2 zone where motels, bed and breakfasts, certain daycares are permitted via special exception among a host of other uses. More broadly, which is relevant here, there are a variety of uses in the general area. Directly abutting the site to the north is Quality Propane. You have Grove Garden Florist to the west, Goodwill to the east. And there are a number of restaurants in the area as well. You can see Clinton Beach Donut here, but also Westbrook Lobster, Land of Thai. So there's certainly a variety of amenities in the area. There are a number of residential uses in the area, which is also relevant here. We have this residential community here off of Bluff Avenue and the surrounding streets. And then, of course, just over the town line in Westbrook, we have the Grove Beach Senior Park, which is a 55 and over manufactured home community, again, in Westbrook, but just over the line. It's also worth pointing out to the commission here that there are quite a few public bus stops along East Main Street. Closest to our site, of course, is the bus stop right in front of Goodwill, and then we have another right in front of Grove Garden Florist. As the commission likely knows, and again, this is our site here, the site is currently the Victorian Village Inn. It's comprised of 12 separate buildings. And while it historically was a motel, in more recent years, it's been used as a short-term residential community. People staying longer than just the couple of nights you would typically see at a hotel. And there are some photographs of what the buildings look like today in the commission's package at tab 1. But I've included a street view here. This is obviously standing on East Main Street, looking more in a northwesterly direction. You can see the sign here for Victorian Village. And then this is, again, on the northern side of East Main Street, looking more in a northeasterly direction. So the Datillo Group is proposing to demolish the 4 buildings that were located in the northwest corner of the site. Again, just to orient the commission, we have East Main Street here. So the right side of the page is actually north. So the northwestern portion of the site, there were 4 buildings. Our proposal is to demolish those, renovate the 8 remaining buildings, which the commission can see here. It's the buildings closer to the southern portion of the site. And we'll be renovating those into 14 one-bedroom units, and then construct a brand new 2-story U-shaped building at the rear of the site here, again, the north of the site, which will contain 26 one-bedroom units. In total, the whole community, once redeveloped, will have 40 one-bedroom units, 10% of which, or 4 units, will be formally rent restricted to 80% to households earning at or below 80% of the area median income. Of course, the proposed, we're keeping this high level, but I do want to mention the proposed improvements include improvements to landscaping, lighting, and importantly as well, stormwater management, of course, on site. The way we're proposing to do this is via an amendment to the zoning regulations to include a new floating zone, which we have coined the multifamily adaptive reuse zone, or the MARZ. And that again will be a new floating zone which will then require an application to land, so to speak, the zone on this particular site, and then approval for the use and the development via special exception approval. And again, we've run this by town staff, and thus far that seems to be the appropriate procedure going forward. So with that really brief overview, I'm going to hand it over to Mark Petrin to talk about the proposed design for the community. And then, as I mentioned, I will bookend. Mark? I think you're on mute, Mark. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, 1 second. I think we're just trying to. Oh,
That's
Can you
okay.
hear me now? Good.
Yep, we can-
I'm Mark Petrin, architect. I worked for Mr. DiTillo for maybe 25 years. I'm responsible for most of the work at Water's Edge Resort. Mr. DiTillo wanted to create a new residential properties, and he wanted it to be in a traditional style. And we are proposing buildings with pitched roofs. We're going to use different types of sidings. We're going to use white trim columns. We're going to use hardy plank, clapboard, and shingles. And we're going to try to give it a traditional look with some dormers and oh, those are the existing. If you could flip to the new, let me go back. Andrew, yeah, there you go. That's the one I want to get. Thank you. Yeah, trying to create a more traditional look with columns and pitch roofs, and we're going to use nice traditional materials. We're going to use architectural shingles for the roof, hardy plank siding for the facades, and we're going to create a stairwell to the second floor that's going to be kind of how can I say it, a balcony going up to an open stairway to the units. We tried to, here, go to the next one. Yeah, the look is, we're trying to do a nice look with traditional windows. We're trying to use more of a, how can I say this, a unique window for all the apartments with a round top and a mullion look. Next slide. Yep, those are east and west. Next slide.
sorry,
There
Mr.
you
Chairman,
go.
Mark, that's the elevations that we have of the new building, and then I
Yeah,
have.
right. So that's essentially the look of the new building. I think the rendering speaks for itself, if you have any questions. And then we can show the renovated cottages.
Sure. And Mr. Chairman, just to orient the commission, in the package, we created this key plan or this footprint plan, if you will. The numbers on the buildings correspond to the sample renderings of the improved building. So I'll just lay that forward and then Mark
Yeah.
kick it off with some
Yeah.
of the examples.
So the idea is to transform the existing buildings. The idea is to reside them, put new roof material on to match the new building, and to all of the windows and doors that are damaged to be replaced. Keep going. You can see there's difference. Basically, they're one-story cottages with, pretty much a one-bedroom inside. We're going to try to pull it all together so that the materials for all of the buildings are the same, and the windows and doors will be of the same style. Keep going. Yeah, keep going. Yep. Oh, that's back of the building.
Yep, that
So-
was it. We just included a few examples, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure you got them all, but there's one really nice Victorian building near the front of the property that has some historical quality that'll give it the Victorian look. So I'm excited about that renovation. And we want to incorporate many of those elements when we develop the final schemes for the new building.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, just a quick question.
You can.
Are these the design of the other buildings, these planned to be long-term leases or motel kind of aspect, or?
I can weigh in on that, Mr. Chairman. This will be a multifamily residential community, so it will be, and Mr. Ackerman can correct me if I'm wrong, but the typical 1-year lease that you see for rental units.
Okay,
So not short-term residential.
okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to stop sharing and then just provide the commission with a couple of closing comments, just preemptively answering some questions that staff had indicated the commission may be interested in, if that's okay.
Please do, that'd be great.
Great. So one of the questions that Ms. Pearsall appropriately asked was the compatibility of this proposed redevelopment with the surrounding uses. I went over some of those uses at the beginning of my presentation, and I won't rehash them, but I'll sum it up by saying that we believe that the area is clearly transitional in nature, particularly as a corridor entering into Clinton from Westbrook. And given the nearby residential uses, again, both in Clinton and in Westbrook, nearby amenities like public transportation, retail, restaurant, and so on, we believe that a multifamily community on the site is certainly compatible with the uses in the greater area. Staff had also requested some information on why this isn't spot zoning, if you will. And the way I like to think about spot zoning is a skyscraper in the middle of a cornfield. And I know that's a little bit more colloquial, but we included a memorandum on spot zoning in our package at tab 5, which gives a little bit more of the background of what it is and the legal test for spot zoning. And we start the memo with a quotation, which I think is really helpful in understanding just from a logical perspective what spot zoning is. And that quote is, "It's the reclassification of a small area of land in such a manner as to disturb the tenor of the surrounding neighborhood." So you're certainly looking at the greater neighborhood and not just the site itself. And the law in Connecticut is such that you're really looking at 2 elements. The first is if the proposal is only impacting a small area of land. And number 2, if the proposal is out of harmony with the quote unquote comprehensive plan of zoning, which is not the same as the plan of conservation and development. I'll get back to that in just a moment, but it's really taking a more holistic view of the uses in the zoning regulations in the surrounding area. So presuming for argument's sake that this is considered a small area of land for that first element of the test, the second element is again looking to make sure we're not out of harmony with the comprehensive plan of zoning. And as we set forth in our memo, we do not believe that we are out of harmony. We actually think we are in harmony with the existing regulations and the vision as the commission has set forth in its overall plan for the community. The site has been used again as a short-term multifamily residential community for a number of years without issue. And if you take a look at your zoning map, yes, our site is located in the I-2, which certainly there are a couple of parcels around us that are in the I-2, but the greater area has a number of residentially zoned parcels. You have parcels in the R40 and in the R60 zone, essentially right next door, and even the B4 zoned parcels that I believe are on the southern side of East Main Street permit certain residential uses. So given the existing multifamily and single family uses in the area, taking a look at the comprehensive plan of zoning, we believe that that second element for spot zoning is not met, so it's not a concern here. I'll also note that, again, comprehensive plan of zoning is different than the plan of conservation and development, but it is important for the commission to know that our plan furthers a number of goals in the Clinton POCD as well. We list those in detail in our memorandum, again, at tab 5. But I'll note just for the commission's edification tonight that the site is located in the East End planning focus area, which the POCD highlights as lacking a welcoming or cohesive character and good design scheme. And the POCD highlights the need for higher density residential, including in particular affordable housing, as appropriate for the East End area. And there are also a number of places in the POCD that highlight the need to improve or phase out semi-permanent housing options like Victorian Village here in favor of higher quality multifamily. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll just conclude by simply saying we think that the application is really a no-brainer. You're taking, not only for the reasons we discussed, but you're taking an underutilized site that's outdated and near an important entry corridor into the town of Clinton, and you're improving it with a new and improved residential community and fulfilling the need for housing in the community as well. So with that, I will thank the commission for its time, and certainly we're here to hear from the commission and answer any preliminary questions, but I'll end my comments there.
Eddie,
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. I got two questions for you. The what's the square footage of each apartment, or what's the square footage?
Yep, I'm going to hand that over to Mark. Commissioner Mark, can you weigh in on the square footage? please?
Yes, I can. They are approximately 1,000 square feet.
Okay, and the ones on, and how many egress? We have front and back egress. It's just
The each apartment has an egress to a balcony or an outside door, and plus there is a sliding door with a balcony off of each apartment.
And what? Just curious. And what do they do when they get to the balcony?
Say again, I didn't hear that.
What do they do when they get to the balcony?
You said, you asked me about egress. So I
Yes.
said, just
Yeah.
sliding door.
So,
One issue too, because of residential building code, the buildings are fully sprinklered.
okay, very good. And the other question was the CRAD. Did you guys present anything to CRAD? It's an awful lot of septic.
There's no application at this point.
There's no application, Commissioner, so
I know, did you get any feedback from them? Did you talk to them about?
whether the septic would fit or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, anything with the septic?
Mr. Wolfgram, our engineer, is on. We don't believe that there's a concern with septic on site, but we were waiting to hear from the commission to get its feedback before we went through with the formal septic application. Al, I'll just ask you to weigh in. Did you have any preliminary conversations regarding SSDI on site?
My name is Al Wolfgram. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me speak. We have not really gone out to discuss this with the health department yet. There was some significant studies done in 1998, 1999, which indicate that the soils are receptive to a development like this. What we're going to do is do a more complete soils analysis to confirm those results and moving forward after this meeting.
Okay.
Adam?
Sorry.
So, forgetting the project, I'd like to talk about the zone a little bit and don't misconstrue my comments as opposition. I haven't formulated an opinion yet, but I do have some concerns about what's been presented. I don't necessarily think it's a no-brainer. There's some things I'd like to go over. When I look at your multifamily adaptive reuse zone, I know you say it's not spot zoning, but the way it's phrased very strictly limits where this zone could be landed. It's not like you could land it anywhere in Clinton. It's very, very few areas that it could affect. I have some concerns about some of the dimensional standards. They seem a little liberal for comparison of our other standards. The setbacks, I look, you listed a maximum building height of 50 feet. We don't have that anywhere except maybe the interchange zone. Everything else is 35, maybe 40 feet. Maximum ground coverage 75%. These are all much greater than almost any of our other regulations allow. You mentioned just a second ago about septic. Well, you've written in here that this zone is designed to function off public water supply and sewage disposal. So which is it? Do you expect public water and sewer, or are you putting in a well and septic because you wouldn't meet your own proposed regulation the way it's written? So it sounded like you've been working with land use a little bit. Again, I'm not necessarily opposed, but I think there's some things that we would certainly want to see cleaned up. I'm not sure, if the other commissioners have other comments along those lines. I wouldn't even concern myself with the project until we deal with the floating zone.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, can I answer through you some of those questions?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just because there were a couple there and I wanted to address it. So it's Connecticut Water Company and septic on site. Just wanted to clarify that. And actually, let me start. Commissioner first was saying this was just a preliminary draft to get the conversation started. We've already received some feedback on the language from Ms. Pearsall. And I've indicated, certainly I don't speak for her, but I've indicated to her, we've worked on prior applications in the past, and Ms. Pearsall knows I have an open door policy, open phone policy. We are always willing to engage in conversations about the specifics of a text or an application. So this was just a starting point. It will be cleaned up for a formal application. So I'll start with that overall. But on the utility side, Connecticut Water Company and septic, Commissioner, you had expressed concerns with some of the dimensional standards. I would point you to the zoning table that we have on our conceptual site plan. Some of the potentially more troubling to you, Commissioner, dimensional standards are existing conditions, many of which we are improving. Because keep in mind, we have some existing buildings on site that we're actually keeping. 8 out of the 12 will be there. So perfect example for that is minimum sideline setback. In the I-2, it's 25 feet. We're proposing in the MARZ that it become 15 feet. Existing is 11.5 feet, and we're actually improving that and making that to 16.8. So we're kind of taking with what we're starting with what we've got and trying to improve it going forward. So I understand. I just wanted to highlight that some of the dimensional standards we're stuck with.
So from my perspective, if you're creating a zone, I don't care with what you're stuck with. You're creating a zone that could go anywhere. And we need to make sure that if it's landed somewhere else in town, it meets the criteria that we're looking for. So it's got some conversation that needs to occur, I think.
Understood. And Commissioner, you actually just put in the perfect segue into the first question you asked, which was about spot zoning, about drafted to apply exclusively to the site. And that's precisely why, Commissioner, we've drafted this regulation to apply to this site. Again, we can engage in some conversations with Ms. Pearsall if we wanted to expand or constrict the eligibility for landing this site. But one of the reasons we're specifically drafting it for the site or very few sites in Clinton is so that the commission can really take a look at the regulation as applied to this site. I can tell you this is done all the time around the state. This is not the first time we've done this. And it's not just about the regulation being drafted to apply to one site. It's that greater test. It's about whether or not the proposed development is small area only, which again, we're saying for argument's sake, let's say it's small area only. And second, if it's out of harmony with a comprehensive plan of development. So it's not just the fact that it's drafted to apply to the site, but understood with your concerns, and we will certainly take those into consideration going forward.
Okay, I think Ellen was next, and then we'll go to Alan and Cindy.
Yeah, I'd like Abby to prepare for us. It's been a long time since we talked about floating zones. I know we adopted the regulations to allow floating zones. I'm not sure, did we actually end up landing one or not?
Yeah, BVS was the
where
last.
we are with those. It's just been so long that I've forgotten our details.
CVS was the last one we landed.
Okay, so that really was landed. Okay, I just didn't
Yeah.
remember that. Okay.
Okay. Alan, did you have, or Abby, did you want to respond at all or move on down?
No, if there's a desire for the commission just to do some sort of background on the structure of the floating zone process in the regulations, I think one of the reasons that the applicants have, or the prospective applicants have landed on this process is that the property is a potential residential development. Obviously, multifamily residential is not allowed in the industrial district. There's no residential use allowed in that district, which would then preclude the ability to use 830G for a multifamily residential development that doesn't meet the zoning standards, which is why this has landed as a potential floating zone application. So just a little bit of context there. We can certainly do some discussion at future meetings about the order of operations and how the regulations currently operate, since it's been a while. If you would like, we can just kind of go through those sections of the regulations at a
I
separate
think
meeting.
that would be very good. Yeah. Alan?
Yeah, I think we need to look at the site in terms of what community facilities are going to be offered. Because while there are adjoining residential neighborhoods, there's little in the way of community facilities. Will there be playgrounds? Will there, or play spaces? What community amenities are going to be provided?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, as of right now, again, these are all preliminary plans. We will certainly bring it back to the Datillo group to discuss. With 41 bedroom apartments, you're not going to see many, if any, children in this apartment. So in this multifamily community. So playgrounds, for example, may go highly unused, but we will certainly consider if there are any common elements or amenities that can be incorporated on site.
Very good. All right, Cindy?
Am I unmuted? Okay, great, fantastic. Yeah, I just had a question. What was the decision making about just making it for single use capacity versus, or maybe a couple versus families, maybe lessening the amount versus having 22 bedroom? Is there any particular reason?
So I can certainly let Mr. Ackerman jump in. He's here on behalf of the Datillo group. I can tell you that one bedroom, just across the state, Commissioner, one bedroom rental apartments are in high demand. And presuming, again, I'll let Mr. Ackerman weigh in if he thinks differently. I'm presuming that Mr. Datillo looked at the site, evaluated how it could best be developed, and took a look at the market and what's actually being searched for in the Clinton area, and probably arrived at a decision that way. Daniel, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Just that there's definitely demand for this type of product.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner, I think it really goes back to demand and need. I can tell you in all the other towns I'm working in, one bedrooms are in short supply.
And then just one other question. So you said you wanted to do 4 out of the 40, which would be 10% for rent restricted. Are you, when you say rent restricted, are you talking about affordable housing versus low income? Have you considered, are you using those two interchangeably, or is it just affordable and you're not considering low income? Or
so I think those terms are interchangeable, Commissioner. What we're proposing is that 4 of the units will be formally rent restricted, meaning that tenants who reside in those 4 units will have to verify their eligibility by showing their proof of income, essentially, to rent those apartments. And those apartments will have a cap on the amount of rent that can be charged to those tenants. So they will be, I call it, it's colloquial, but I call it affordable with a capital A, meaning that they meet the requirements. I'm sure the commission has heard of the 10%, I'll call it a goal for 830G purposes. One of the things that you look at in calculating the housing stock of 10% is the number of deed restricted units in the town. These 4 will be formally rent restricted. So I don't know, Commissioner, if you have another thought of what low income means, but that's the goal here, is formally rent restricting those 4 units to those households.
If I may, we can refine the definition as we move forward. Thank you. This is Mr. Ackerman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman. I had a quick question. It looked like that the rear building, the rear new building was going to be built pretty close to the property line that's going to overlook the Quality Propane. Has there been any thought on how you're going to buffer that view or?
Yes,
building?
a lot of aesthetic screening and greenery in order to, make a cascading sort of screen and buffer.
All right, because I was just thinking you got the height wise, you got the second floor, and they're going to be literally the second floor apartments with their balconies are going to be looking right down onto the tanks for the propane. So just a thought.
Mr. Chairman, I'll add I believe our conceptual site plan shows that we'll have a fence in that area, and we will also be putting in a landscape buffer as well. And then I did consult with Mr. Petrin. We're going to ensure that, all of the materials will be high quality, but they will be high quality in a way that helps buffer any potential sound impacts or anything that you could have from a neighboring property. So those are the measures that we have right now for screening, if you will, from our site to the abutting property.
Okay. Eddie, did you have another question?
Yes, Michael, Mr. Chairman, I got two questions. They're gonna make all those one-bedroom apartments. Okay, so what? So if I moved in there with my wife, it's a one-bedroom. I'm allowed to have my wife with my one bedroom. You can't just say you can only have one person. Am I correct? So if I can move in there with my wife, yes or no?
Yes, no. Residency requirements in terms of the number of people are they're set by the public health code. So there's no restriction.
Okay, so there's no issue. Okay, so hypothetically, you have 40 units and then 40 people move in because there's a shortage of apartments, and they go with their spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever they got. Now everybody has their own car. They're not going to take the bus. So we have enough parking. Was that taken into effect? These are questions that we go over. Okay, So
absolutely.
All right. So now you're looking at 80 cars. Is there a place for 80 cars there?
So Commissioner, I can weigh in on parking. Right now, you're correct, 40 one-bedroom units. Right now, we have it set up, and I've had conversations with Ms. Pearsall about tweaking the language of the proposed regulation to more closely match some of the other regulations you have currently on the books. But we currently are providing for 1.5 parking spots per unit, which gives us 60 parking spots for 40 one-bedroom units. I will note that in 2021, the legislature amended the Connecticut state statutes to provide that a commission cannot require more than one parking spot per one-bedroom unit unless it opts out. And my understanding is Clinton has not opted out. So
we know about that. They can park on the street and nearby streets and this and that. We know about that. I'm just asking about what you proposed with 40 units, and then 40 units. There's just say 30 of them are occupies. We're looking at 70 cars. I'm just being hypothetical.
Yep, understood. And we did 1.5 spaces per unit, which is far in excess of what the state statute requires. So we believe we're appropriately parked, and frankly, potentially even we're appropriately parked for the proposed community, we believe.
Okay. Abby's our town planner, so she's got a handle on this, I'm sure.
Sure.
Just a quick question. When industrial use space is hard to find, and once we go down this road, if we did, we're giving up a parcel that's zoned industrial. Have you given any thought to like a mixed use development as opposed to all residential?
We have not, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, we have not. Again, the need for housing, it's currently operating as a short-term residential use. So we didn't think it was too intuitive of a leap to reinforce that and improve that. I don't believe that there's been any conversation about, and if you're talking about mixed use with industrial, then I don't believe that's been part of the conversation.
Not necessarily with industrial, but maybe with, shops or.
My understanding is that hasn't been part of the plan. Again, the need for housing is so great that I believe Mr. DiTillo wanted to go that route. Again, taking into consideration what the property currently is, but we can discuss it internally and see if there's anything there.
Okay, Martin had a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Knudsen spoke about the aesthetics of overlooking propane tanks. Do you think it's wise to put high density residential right next to hundreds and hundreds of gallons of extremely inflammable propane? I mean, is that the right place to be seating high density residential?
So if I may.
No, don't do it, due respect, it just based on historical demand and historical, if you look at the leasing over the years, it's been abutted next to that property for many years, and a careful consideration has been taken into the aesthetic.
I'm not talking about the aesthetics, I'm talking about safety issues.
Thousands of gallons, Martin, not hundreds.
Thousands of gallons
It's
of
been a
explosive
residential
propane
for
sitting
many
next door to high density residential.
Daniel, let me weigh in here. Commissioner, I can answer that. Yep. So completely understood. I'll just highlight, and again, I'm not a specialist in propane, but I would presume that quality propane, like any company handling propane or any similar type of material, is subject to very strict state regulations and potentially even federal regulations on storing their materials. And as Mr. Ackerman pointed out, we've operated a residential use, albeit short term, is operated on site without issue for a number of years. There's really nothing for us to base a concern. There's no reason for us to be concerned that anything would change going forward, whether it's 10 units or 20 or 30. We don't think that there'd be any issue here. And I'll also highlight the way the site currently is set out. It doesn't appear to be a very clear dividing line from the quality propane facility to ours. With this improved site, we'll have fencing, we'll have landscaping, so there'll be an even greater buffer, both aesthetically and physically, from in between the sites as compared to now.
Okay, any other commission members with questions for Ms. Gomez?
I just had one more quick question. When we were talking about those parking spaces, out of curiosity, are we planning on doing any type of electric vehicle parking? Will there be any outlets for electrical vehicles?
We are absolutely open to that. We have that on other properties. So a small percentage of the overall parking spaces, sure, absolutely would have that consideration. Thank you for the question.
Yes, Commissioner, apologies. I was having a little bit of a coughing fit, thanks to my toddler who gave me that for Mother's Day. Yes, that's certainly something we can evaluate, as Mr. Ackerman said, and we'll take that into account.
I think too, for the commission's purposes, there are statutory requirements relative to infrastructure and charging stations for multifamily development over a certain size. So this is something that we would probably want to take a look at for this one as well.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we, Alan? Yep, go ahead.
Yes, quick question. Did you consider, instead of the large structure, two smaller structures parallel to one another, and so that the end of the building are relatively narrow compared to what you have now, so that the views will be to the north and to the east and west rather than north-south?
So Commissioner, I can weigh in on that. I don't believe that specific plan was considered, but that's something that we can certainly talk about internally. As you can imagine, Commissioner, a plan like that would probably cut down on the number of units on site, which would certainly impact Mr. DiTillo's the DiTillo Group, overall analysis for the site. But we'll take a look and we'll see if there's anything there.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions before we close this and move on?
I personally want to thank you for being candid with us up front.
No, absolutely. It's been a pleasure and we look forward to working with the town of Clinton and Ms. Pearsall as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, commissioners.
Bye now.
Hope you feel better. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. My toddler has something to answer for.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Correspondence. We have a correspondence from the Paul Orsini with the Clinton Chamber of Commerce regarding sign issues. Paul, if you're here and want to discuss, we're here to listen.
Thank you. I'm here. I didn't think there'd be a discussion. I just wanted to hear the comments on the letter, but if you'll allow me, I think where the businesses impacted by this are coming from is that times are changing a bit, and these signs, while they don't work for everybody, I myself have two businesses in town. One is right across from, it's 350 East Main Street, so I was very interested in the previous conversation. Would not work for me there. And what we're talking about, for those of you who don't know, I'm sorry, are the teardrop type flags that can go up various sizes, anywhere from 3 to 7 feet, I think. That go on that are a little different than the flutter flags that were the old style that just kind of waved in the wind out there to get people to notice that you're in business. These are a little different. They're much sturdier, and they oscillate slightly with the wind. They do not flutter, these signs. Anyways, at Doc's Bar and Grill, which I own on Main Street, I'd have no need for that because my business is here. It's a mature business now. It's been 9 years, and there'd be absolutely no need for me to hang this type of sign out there. But I also do the concession stand at the beach, where this would come in really handy for me, because I have folks down at the sail club or at the playground who don't know I'm there unless I have something like this. These are relatively cheap for businesses. They run just north of $100 for a smaller sign, as opposed to a $375 ad in the Harbor News that's going to last one day. So these are, it's just something that some businesses would find very appealing and helpful to use. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the last council meeting, where Carl asked the town council to work with the EDC on going out to businesses and finding, what kind of issues are we having with the town, and what's going to help us stay here rather than go out of business or shut down my business. So I think while we all agree there needs to be sign restrictions, there is no way that I want what's happening on Main Street in downtown to happen all over town, where there's just flags everywhere, flags that out from flagpoles that hinder you as you walk by on the sidewalk on a windy day. Nobody wants that. We want regulation. We just want the regulation to change, if possible, to incorporate new styles of potential advertising for these businesses. So we're not advocating for a free fall. I don't think if we agree to allow these type of flags, and the teardrop flags, they do come in different sizes. The old flutter flags were those big things that just hung out there like a bird and flew with the wind. That's not what we're asking here. These teardrop signs are reinforced on both sides. They do not flutter. On a windy day, they do oscillate a bit, but they look good, and they're the new style that businesses around the state are using. And we're just asking
So I think that the next step would be is to have this go to the regulations committee to review, and you could certainly meet with them when they meet and take this up and see what the feedback from them would be and bring something forward. Abby, does that sound like a reasonable plan?
It does, yes. So we could certainly add it to the agenda for the next regulations committee to begin a discussion. And I think it's a question for the full commission of their consensus, if that's where it should go.
I'd like to add to Mr. Orsini's what he's talking about. When I'm down at the beach, we go to the beach, and people ask me, where can I get something to drink? Nobody even knows that Paul's there. No one even knows because there's no sign. I'm just saying, for the guy to stay in business, I understand he has to go to design review, but I think maybe some exemptions should be made here. I mean, the guy took over that place, and nobody even knows he has hot dogs. No one even knows he's there, Michael. I'm being honest with you.
Well, Eddie, we can discuss this in the regulations committee because those.
Well, I'm just saying, I want to give my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents, that we should go to regulations and not, throw this under the bus. I mean,
It's just, they're currently prohibited, and so I've been enforcing them. So I think that it's good to have a discussion with the regulations committee.
right. I just want to say.
That's why it should move to regulations
Yeah,
and
let's
move
move it
forward
to
and have a
regulations.
discussion, and design review board can weigh in, and we can see where this can go.
Okay.
But
Excuse me 1 second. It is, just so I'm clear, is the regulations committee, is that something I would do, that I need to proactively reach out to them, or is that something that comes out of this meeting?
at the next,
If I may through you, Mr. Chair, this would come out, so at the next regularly scheduled regulations committee meeting, we would add this to the agenda as a point of discussion. The regulations committee is a subset of this group, so the members who are here would also, there are members who would be attending that, so it wouldn't be sort of happening in a bubble. Your letter would go forward as part of the information to be discussed, and it would just be a conversation about what are the current regulations and how, how might we begin to have this conversation about considering a potential change.
Okay, is this a public meeting that I would attend, or is it something, a subcommittee of you, and you would get back to me later?
It's a public meeting that it's a subcommittee of this group, but the meeting is open to the public, and so you'd certainly be able to. I believe that they have been scheduled so far virtually, so we could get you the link and make sure it'll be posted on the town website ahead of time, and we could get you all the information going in, so you could be part of that conversation.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time to hear
It
me
would
out.
also be very useful for the committee to have examples of the signage. And if you planned on attending, if you had photographs or catalog.
Oh, absolutely.
Signage would be useful.
Okay.
very good. Great. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Have a great
Paul.
night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have a correspondence from Town of Westbrook on the proposed text amendments. I don't think there's anything we have to do on that, except receive it,
No,
correct?
It's an FYI.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions on that? Okay, hearing none, we can move on. I believe Attorney Casella is here to discuss on the Lindera conservation easement. So it's over to you, Ed.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Ed Casella. I represent Andrew, Randy, and Christine Lozano, who are on the call as well tonight. We're working with Abby for the modification of a conservation easement that is on lot 11 of the Lindera Lane subdivision completed, which was approved in the 2000s and developed over the next 10 years. Andrew and Christine purchased their home in 2010 from the developer Cornerstone Construction. But after they purchased their home, they learned that a lot of their developed backyard, including a lot of fill, was located within the conservation easement area that was shown on the original subdivision plans. The area was never marked out, and there was really no delineation between the developed yard and the conservation area. There is a pattern where the fill ends and there's like a rock boulder wall, but that's well inside the conservation, almost at the border of the easement. And unfortunately, the town didn't require an as-built survey. So a CO was issued with this condition. They purchased the home and then 2 years later realized they really couldn't do anything in their backyard because it was in the middle of a conservation easement area. So when this came to light in 2012, we worked with Tom Lane. There was other issues going on with the subdivision at that time, which you may recall, where these kind of issues were happening, and the folks who had purchased were aware of it, and on top of things, cease and desist orders were issued. But ultimately worked out with Tom Lane that this property could get a modified conservation easement. Unfortunately, no other documentation was provided at that point. We had a map, we had a new conservation easement, but the file is thin at the town hall. And Abby has asked us to work with this commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, which ultimately approved the original conservation easement, and also the Red Wing Foundation, which is the beneficiary of the easement. And we have discussed this with Red Wing Foundation, and they have no objections with the request that we're making. And now we're seeking to for planning and zoning approval for the modification as it was back in 2012, and as we're just trying to finalize and get fully approved today. Andrew or Christine, do you have anything briefly to add?
Your mic's off. No, it's
You
on.
got it.
Is it on?
You're on.
You're on.
Yes, how are
You're
you?
on, sir.
Thanks, Ed. Just with the commission itself, Abby and Kathy and I spoke multiple times in regards to this. When we purchased the property, Ed was correct. When we found out that the land was filled in, it was basically in conjunction with putting a playground in the backyard for my kids. That's when everything was found out that it was filled in and that we weren't allowed. Going forward, once we had some kind of understanding between the town and Tom Lane and Willie Fritz, we went forward again and reapplied with the new conservation map. We went back to Greg Fettis, we hired Ed. So we went through the process that the town told us to go through at that time. And the compromise was just what we came up with, which Ed explained, was in 2012, which was a new map that was drawn. And in that map was new conservation lines. There was a pool that was in there, as well as the side of our house was filled in, and we agreed to remove some of the land that was filled in into the conservation on the side of the house. So we spent a good amount of money at our expense on what the town, I felt, was very negligent, as well as them not fulfilling their obligation as the Inland Wetlands Commission, as well as the building inspector. This was, we thought, was resolved in 2012, which the understanding, as I said, of Tom Lane and Willie Smith, as well as multiple units that were being built, were also inclusive in this of filling in wetlands and conservation land. So our understanding was this was completed in 2012 with the understanding of Tom and Willie Fritz that we could go forward with the new map. I also pulled the new map and attached it to a permit for the playground and a patio, as well as a wall with a propane gas tank and generator put in. When I applied for that in 2012, the attachment on that, as you could see, was the new conservation map. So that was approved by Tom Lane. It specifically says on that application, as well with the attached map, that there's previous conservation line. It says it very clearly, previous conservation lines. Tom Lane signed off on that. So as far as I was concerned with that, and with the conversations that we had with the town and Tom Lane, that this was something that was agreed upon. That's the compromise that we made. And we went forward, as I said, spending the money for an attorney, a surveyor, as well as an engineer to fix the problem at our expense, which was the town's fault for not finding this out prior to giving a CO. So that's where we are now. We just hope that everyone on the commission understands, but as I said, for my wife and I and our family, it's a little disheartening that this is going through this process 10 years, 11 years later, when it was thought to be resolved. And that was the agreement that we made with the town for not fulfilling a lawsuit or going forward with a lawsuit against the town. I mean, that's pretty much wrapped up in kind of a small little bundle of where we were 10, 11 years ago and where we are now.
Okay, thank you. Abby, is this something that the town attorney is, our planning and zoning attorney, town attorney is looking into, or?
Yes, yes, we've had multiple conversations with staff and with the town attorney, Carrie Olson, and there's a couple of things. So one of the things that we'll be providing to the commission is a summary of the history of what's in the record relative to this request. So that includes the original conservation easement, the modification to that easement, which didn't supersede the original in its language or in the authority. So the way in which the easement was placed on the property, the procedural elements to change it at the time, for better or worse, were not followed. And so we'll kind of give you a summary of that, of permits that may have been pulled relative to the proposed amended boundary. So we'll give you all of those things. The recommendation of the town attorney, and I think it makes sense because of the gravity of the potential to amend a conservation easement is not a small thing. So we want to make sure that you have all of the information available to make a decision that makes sense for the commission, for the land, for for what we've got going on here. So certainly we're sympathetic to what the property owners have been through and what their history is and what their desires are. And we want to make sure that procedurally the commission is on track to make sure that you understand the full scope of what's being asked. So we'll have a memo prepared in advance of the June meeting to make sure that you have additional information at that time.
So Abby, what would the procedure be? What's the mechanism to do this? Is it a vote of the commission? Or
it would be it would be a vote of the commission. So basically the original conservation documentation, it was in favor of the Red Wing Foundation, so they have to agree, and which I believe Ed has provided, Attorney Casella has provided some information on. This commission, so the original conservation easement went also with the oversight and authority of this commission and at the time the first selectman. So what would need to happen is if this commission votes favorably, it would also need to go to town council with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission to make sure that the whatever future instrument may be recorded is very clear that it has gone through all the various approval steps and would supersede the original easement. And so that's important to show that record.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ed.
What are you looking for, Mr. Lozano? What are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for what was agreed upon by Tom Lane and I. I mean, it was, I don't want to get somewhat personal, but it was very
personal. I mean,
well,
you want us to understand.
It was much neglect and fraud in my case. I mean, we were sold a house that had a distinctive backyard filled with rocks, as well as the other residents that he was building. And we got an understanding that this is what I purchased a house for. I wanted a pool, I wanted a patio. When this came
Do you
about,
have anything with
Eddie, I can
pool on
answer
it?
that
Ed,
as well. There's a plan, there's a survey plan, as Andrew said.
Yep.
Greg Fettis did a plan that showed lines. This
Yep.
is the new boundary. This is the location. There's a maintenance buffer. We met with Tom on the property. All of this is, there's already kind of a very good plan showing exactly what we're asking for.
And you tell it, and you said that what was it? Who's the
Red Wing Foundation.
And they signed off on it?
They did.
They signed off on it. Tom Lane signed off on it?
He did. There's no,
Well, I think that's important to note because there's
Oh,
the
40.
the verbal history from the property owner and from Attorney Casella is that their conversation back in 2012 was that Tom expressly blessed this this change in his capacity as zoning enforcement officer. Unfortunately, that role does not hold the authority to make changes in the subdivision plan or the conservation easement. And so that's an important sort of distinction. The other part of it is that we don't have an express record or sign off from Tom on the modified plan. So, you know, a lot of the work that's gone into this before it has come to you in this form is, you know, so Kathy and I scouring the records, you know, with Christy's help and really trying to find anything that we may have in our record to sort of say, here's the documentation of that history. We don't have it. And so that's one of the reasons that we're here is because number one, that the ZEO position can't make that amendment. And even if it had been granted, you know, you'll see documents, you know, subdivision plans that have zoning sign off, you know, throughout the land records. This recorded instrument notably did not. And so I think it's important that, you know, whatever the commission's decision going forward, that it's a clear record so the property owner knows kind of where things stand.
So
Could I say
Abby,
something
Abby,
if I can, please?
Martin's up next.
would it, this is directed toward our planner. Is this actually in the form of a re-subdivision then? Is this an application to re-subdivide the property?
I don't believe it rises to the level of re-subdivision because you're talking about, it's not changing the lot lines. It's talking about an easement that's applied to the subdivision. And so with the correct language, my understanding with the town attorney is that, you know, so that it specifically references this conservation line from this subdivision has been modified at the following locations in the following manner. It's the easement line that's being potentially modified, not the lots itself in the subdivision. So it wouldn't be a re-subdivision.
Yeah,
If I may say something also. The question is that when we're all talking about what was said and what was done and what was signed, all I could tell you as a homeowner for this lot that we're talking about is that I would not be here hiring an attorney, let alone an engineer, as well as a surveyor back in 2012, unless I was told to. And I was specifically told by Tom Lane and Willie Fritz in order to get this redrawn to the way it was when you purchased it and the way you want it, is to hire these individuals. And I hired these individuals. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but detrimental reliance, there's now a reliance on them to tell me what to do to fix a problem that they caused. And I went ahead and hired these individuals based on what they recommended. And on their recommendation, I now am here 10 years later, going through the process of what I should have had resolved 10, 12 years ago because of the town's negligence and, in my opinion, personal opinion, fraud. Because I was sold a house with land that was filled in, that was consistent with other houses that were being built, that was not stopped until we put cease and desists on all the houses that he was building and that Tom Lane and the town was allowing him to do. Second of all, when Abby stated that there's no record or I was never privy to any meeting that the town attorney had. I don't know why people aren't called to have a conversation one-on-one. I spoke with Abby and Kathy on 3 occasions. And when this got further down the road, I received a letter on a Friday night at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, stating that I needed to get all these signatures again and so forth and so on. So I had no conversations with the town attorney. I had no conversations with a round meeting that I feel that everyone should have been involved to kind of resolve this issue. And going back to a signature, I pulled a permit back in 2013 that Tom Lane signed for me to put a patio that is in that old conservation line. Attached to that permit is the new drawing of conservation lines that Greg Fettis, that I paid for, was attached to, and it very clearly states, see attached plan. And in that plan was a pool, the patio, and with the new conservation lines, as well as very cleared on that map, it says previous conservation lines. So there is a big distinction between previous lines and the lines that we submitted that I was requested to do by the town. So is this aggravating to me? It's aggravating, very aggravating that this was supposed to be done 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And here I am again discussing this issue, that it is even an issue. And it cost me $17,000 after I purchased the house already to fix a problem that the town wasn't aware of and signed off on as a CO. And here we are again, incurring more expenses.
I'm not trying to.
Eddie, hold on. Kathy has something she wants to add, and then we're going to.
Yes, so just a couple of points. First of all, the town attorney meets with staff, doesn't meet directly with property owners. Secondly, a lot of this documentation that we don't have is very pertinent to, because we can't go by hearsay. We have to go by what we have in writing. Thirdly, as Abby stated, Tom Lane as CEO doesn't have the authority to change a conservation easement. It's not within our authority as zoning enforcement officers to do that. I would highly suggest that we table this until we have more information from our attorney. Abby had spoken with Carrie Olson. I've been on the conversations as well. There's a lot of information that we need to share, that we need to have legal opinion on. And I think we can discuss this, but without those facts, it's not really fair to the commission because you don't have everything you need to make a decision.
Right, so we can table this to the June, I forgot, 13th meeting, is it?
June 12th. Yep.
And we'll have the time that the town attorney will be able to get us that info, and then we can.
Can I just make one, quick point before we table this?
Yes.
Yeah, and I was involved in 2012 and I'm involved today. And I guess this is on me. So unfortunately, I destroyed my file, after 7 years, and I don't have any electronic record. So it's just one of those things. And I know Mr. Randy's very frustrated. So that's why we're here, just trying to get it all buttoned up and done correctly. So
We're
hopefully
going to try to move it along as fast as we can.
You got it. We know it's tabled till June 12th.
Do we need to get a motion to table?
I'm just kind of shocked about this whole thing here.
I'm not surprised in the least.
Yeah.
I got a question.
I know you're not, Alan. I know you're
And
not.
Tom Lane was a land use lawyer.
Yes, a land use lawyer.
You
So
should have known better.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this.
Yeah.
The
I
guy
think
bought the house.
we will absolutely provide a summary of what the public records are, of where, sort of the approvals we know, and give you kind of the full picture of what we have and what the tools that you have to make a decision.
Yeah,
and we'll do that with the
facts.
advice, and we'll do that under the advice and guidance of the town attorney, so that you have what you need in order to deliberate and act on this. What we can do is add it to the administrative review section of next month's agenda.
And then we can act and do it all according to the proper procedures.
I want to say one thing. What happens if you put the pool in 10 years ago? Then what?
We would have been fine.
Right. That's my point.
So, but anyway, let's get the opinion
And
from
one
the
other
attorney.
thing, Quality Propane built that building next door to Goodwill. And he was supposed to put it in, Kath, you weren't even here. So he was gonna put it in, and then the recession hit, and he held off for quite a while. And there was some changes made. And he had a prior approval. And I said to the commission, we gave him a prior approval before, we have to approve him again. And not Adam, remember? And they gave Malazzi they gave him an approval. If they gave this gentleman approval.
Well, Eddie, and that's why we have to wait until we get the
I'm just telling you,
the attorney.
You were there with Malazzi.
May I
What
say
happened
something?
then was they were trying to stop it and they gave it to him.
First of all,
Kathy, please go.
Eddie, you cannot compare properties. First of all, that's a completely different situation. That's the first thing. Secondly, the pool came in as a proposed pool. It was not on the plan that was signed off. Thirdly, sometimes they have to go with what we have in writing. That's the law, and that's what we have to go with. And there is a lot of gravity, as Abby said, to changing a conservation restriction or conservation easement. The best
So
thing
if
to
he
do
did this 10 years
is to
ago, like
stop-
Mike said.
Eddie,
10
The
years ago.
best thing to do
we'll
is
vote next
not to
month.
discuss this.
Eddie,
We don't have all the information. Wait
we'll be
until
able to
you get the attorney information, Abby's memo, and then have the discussion when you have all the facts. Right now, you don't. You don't have all the information for you.
Absolutely.
No, I don't, because I don't have anything.
Well, that's what we're
And
gonna
that's,
get.
that's the point. And so I will absolutely have something for you in advance of the June meeting that's gone through town attorney review that you can see and has her, her advice included. And so that it's a very concise summary of the information that's been provided by Attorney Casella that we have on our records. And so hopefully it gives you all of the body of information that you will need to make a fully informed decision. So we'll have that for you for the June 12th meeting.
And then will you also have proposed motions for us on if we were to so choose to approve or?
We can draft in any direction that you like. So we'll be ready for whatever decision that you make.
Very good.
But nobody answered my question. My question was, if he put the pool in already, what would happen? Where'd we be?
Yeah, well,
think
yeah.
Some of that depends on permitting because this would require an inland wetlands permit in order to get the pool in. So if this is modified.
Tom Lane would have approved all this and the pool would have went in, and then if he wanted to go do something else.
No,
No,
because Tom Lane doesn't have the authority to vote for the Inland Wetlands Commission.
But if
With
he
the
did it
distance-
back then, that's my point.
Yeah,
If he
but the
did it-
thing,
It would have had to go through
Excuse
the
me,
wetlands
he's
then.
saying, Kath, if it
Excuse
went
me,
before
can I just say
the
one thing,
Wetlands
please?
Commission.
Can I say
If it
one
went
thing?
before
I think
the
we're
Wetlands Commission.
speculating a lot, folks,
Right.
on,
I don't wanna
that we're sort of
speculate.
losing the meeting here.
I don't wanna
We have a lot of
speculate.
people,
Speculate.
excuse me, we have a lot of people talking over one another, one at a
Okay.
time. Mr.
Can I
Randy.
just speak? Thank
Yes,
you very
please go
much.
ahead.
I completely disagree with Kathy saying that he doesn't have the authority. There's permits that were pulled in 2012 from Tom Lane and from the meetings that occurred from the Inland Wetlands Commission that very clearly states that Tom Lane approves a pool and
he
approves.
can approve a pool as a ZEO, but he can't change a conservation restriction.
These are
I'm
in-
a zoning
these are
enforcement
in-
officer. I'm
these are
certified
in
by
the-
the state. It's
These are
not
in the-
allowed.
Can I speak or you
No,
want to
because
speak
you're
over me?
not, your
Andrew,
facts are
Andrew,
incorrect.
let's just hold off until next month, please, okay?
All right.
Let's wait till next month. It'll be heard. We'll have the whole packet. We'll have all the facts in front of us and we can make a informed decision. Can I get a motion to continue this to the June?
So moved.
Thank you, Alan.
Second.
Second.
My hand up for 10
Okay.
minutes and haven't been recognized.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ellen. I didn't see it. I apologize.
Ellen, you can have the second. I will take the second. You can.
I will withdraw.
I just, so what we're looking for then is a motion and that we could do this as a commission.
Yes.
Okay, and it would not require a public hearing.
Nope. Nope, no public hearing.
Right, what
We'll make the decision. Our commission.
what you will get in advance of the next meeting is a summary of all of the information and sort of here is your path forward. So that's what you will get at the next meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, so we had a
It's
motion.
gonna
Who
be
has the
from-
second.
All right.
Hurry up. We're gonna close this out here.
Second.
Okay, Cindy had the second. All in favor? Hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I think that was unanimous. Any abstaining or no?
No, no.
Okay.
We're
Motion passed. It's continued. Thank you,
gonna
guys. for
continue
attending.
this
Thank you.
with all, once Abby gives us all the facts.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Last on our it's adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
That's
So moved.
Second. Ellen made the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.